9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1. Ignition.
That's what it sounded like last Friday in a patch of desert in Texas when a spacecraft capsule carrying Toronto businessman Henry "Hank" Wolfond and 5 other paying passengers in the capsule blasted off from the launch pad. It was actually on Amazon owner Jeff Bezos' ranch. And they accelerated to nearly 3 times the speed of sound, rocketing 100 kilometers above the Earth just into outer space, past what's known as the Kármán line, where they had enough time for a few minutes for Wolfond and the others to take off their seatbelts and float around the cabin, experiencing weightlessness and taking in the view of the glowing Earth below. Wolfond and the others were so awe-inspired, even moved to tears by their journey, he says he could barely remember all the people he wanted to thank back home. The whole ride lasted about 11 minutes from start to touchdown when his capsule decelerated back to Earth and landed with the help of 3 blue parachutes. Wolfond's journey is part of the Blue Origin Company, a competitor to Elon Musk's SpaceX in the new field of commercial space travel. For legal reasons, Wolfond can't tell us how much it costs to buy a seat on the mission, but some estimates I've read say it costs about $250,000 Canadian or more. Wolfond isn't the first Jewish person to take one of these quick space trips, nor the first Canadian, but he always wanted to be an astronaut. He learned to fly all sorts of planes, and he's watched Space Odyssey and Star Trek countless times. He admits he was inspired to sign up for the trip after seeing Canadian actor William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk on the original Star Trek series, doing the trip 3 years ago when he was 90. Wolfond has already been a lifelong Zionist and Jewish community volunteer, but since this mission came a year after October 7th, he decided literally to wear his values as part of his blue space uniform.
And I wore the yellow ribbon. I don't know if you noticed it. It was on my uniform when I came back, and I had... you couldn't have this dangling, but this was on underneath, so...
I'm Ellen Bessner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, November the 27th, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, made possible in part by the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Hank Wolfond said he hoped that by going to space, he could also help fight antisemitism. So aside from his granddaughter's Taylor Swift bracelets, which he brought with him, he also carried pictures of his and his wife's families to remember his legacy. Wolfond grew up in Guelph, Ontario, where his grandparents helped found the synagogue Beth Isaiah. His wife's father survived Auschwitz, but lost 5 sisters and a mother in the Holocaust. Wolfond spent a year in high school studying in Israel, arriving the night before the 1973 Yom Kippur War broke out. Since then, he's worked for many Jewish organizations. As a volunteer, his family's name is on the Wolfond Center for Jewish Students at the University of Toronto. But after October 7th, Wolfond felt a calling to chair the Anti-Semitism Committee of Toronto's Jewish Federation. Indeed, he left a Zoom meeting with that group to fit in our interview. Well, welcome home. We're speaking after a few days that you've been back on terra firma. I guess I should ask you, how physically are you feeling now?
Physically, I'm feeling fine. I've experienced a lot of, I would call it emotional overload. I got back to Toronto on Saturday evening after flying to outer space on Friday. And there's just, following the experience and the awesome, I don't know how to describe it, breathtaking sensation of being weightless, of being in the blackness of space. Is it a come down to be back on Earth? Is the melancholy coming from the fact that it's over and this experience that I craved since I was a little boy, 5 or 6 years old, is now complete? I don't know. Physically, I would say I'm good.
I want to ask you about the prep. You got 2 days, I'm told.
That is correct.
And do they tell you where you're allowed to sit, or you can choose which of those seats you can pick? How does that work?
They assign your seats based on a weight and balance calculation. It's interesting, leading up to going, they want your weight every single day. like send us a picture of your scale. So I think they're quite meticulous in how they distribute the weight around the capsule because they want it to be balanced. So when it comes down, it will fall fairly vertically. I'm assuming that's the reason, but they assigned me seat 4, which was from the view on takeoff was excellent. I wasn't looking at the structure of the tower. I was looking out at the desert. I was looking at a beautiful mountain range from about 10 stories up in the air, and I felt quite calm as it was counting down from 30 minutes to ultimately lighting up and lifting off. It's more than just about fulfilling a childhood dream. It's about something bigger and a cause that I've been engaged with. Throughout my adult life, I've been involved in Jewish causes with UJA, with CJA, with CJPAC, and other organizations. So for me, it was a natural fit. And from reading Carl Sagan and Chris Hadfield and that perspective of seeing the world from a distance and recognizing that we're like a tiny part of the universe, a speck, that we need to protect this planet, we need to cooperate more, and we need to do better and, try and bring the blurred lines of division that you see from space down to Earth.
Did you talk to William Shatner, before you went, or get advice or read his book?
I didn't read Bill Shatner's book, but I was inspired to do this ultimately by watching his reaction to returning from a Blue Origin trip in October of 2021. And the next day, or maybe it was even 2 days later, whatever, I contacted Blue Origin. I said, I'm interested in pursuing this. And, we talked, we interviewed over a month or two, and I signed up in January of 2022.
The connection with his planet was profound. When he looked at the Earth, he's like, thank God, I'm going home. How does that sit with you? What does that say to you?
What you see when you're up there is this very thin blue layer, which is the atmosphere that protects us and keeps it all alive, this black space, and it's a black that you can't describe. It's like a color that doesn't exist on Earth. It's a translucent black through the atmosphere. When you see the night sky, that's not the blackness of space. It's like a pure black, like ink, although it's not liquid, but it's like clear black. You don't see stars at the level that we were at. And the Earth is like a shining ball. And the interesting thing, I wouldn't say the Earth is flat, but it's smoothed out. This line is perfectly smooth. Everything is on one level. When you look down, you don't see topography or the contours of mountains, and you see pattern and color. So I did not speak to Bill, but I did have the opportunity to interact with Chris Hadfield, who gave me some very good advice for maximizing the experience.
Can you share some of it?
He said, look, it's going to be short. Just take it all in. It's fun to be in the weightless environment, but, look out the window. Don't squander the 3.5 to 4 minutes that you're going to have in that environment. Really bring presence and mindfulness to what you're seeing and think about what your purpose is.
Are you allowed to take meds when you go up, or did you want to disclose?
I did not. I didn't reread the fine print of the rules, but there's, a 7 or 8 page document where you're signing your life away. Literally. I did not take any meds. I wanted to have be as clear-minded as possible. It's not unlike a fear of flying or something. I want to take in this experience. I don't want to just be numb to the environment.
Did you see Canada? Did you see Israel?
No, there's no orbiting. And even if you did get that high up, where you were, Israel would be on the other side of the world.
But it was here in your heart. You're up there looking through the windows. You're up there trying to take it all in. But where was Israel and war and your journey?
You know, I'm focused as chair of the Confronting Anti-Semitism Committee on hate, anti-Semitism, and what's happening here in Canada, what's happening in North America, what's happening outside of Israel. You know, shooting at a kid's Jewish day school, firebombing a synagogue, someone, giving a Nazi salute and declaring they want to see the final solution in Montreal is not advancing a Palestinian cause. I think there should be a two-state solution. I have no problem. The attacks on October 7th were horrific, and anyone who says this didn't start on October 7th is supporting terror as far as I'm concerned. But my mission with this is really about, this is being taken to the Jews. This is not a protest against the Israeli military strategy. Israelis are a free and democratic society. Israelis protest in the streets of Tel Aviv, in the streets of Jerusalem, outside the Prime Minister's house all the time, whether it has to do with legal issues like a reconstitution or a rewriting of the Supreme Court, or that not enough is being done for the hostages. That is not what we're seeing here. We are seeing violent protests, calls for the elimination of the Jewish people. It's not justified, and I think we're in a crisis. It's never been this dire. My grandparents came to this country to escape pogroms in Russia and the Ukraine. My grandfather saw his brother hanged from a lamppost in a town called Shkvira. I'm starting to well up a little bit. But when they came to this country before 1920, it's not like there wasn't anti-Semitism. There was anti-Semitism. You couldn't go to this club, and you were excluded from living in certain places, but they felt safe, and they worked hard, and they contributed to society. They blended in. They gave back. They didn't live in shtetls. They weren't isolated. They didn't fear for their lives because they're Jewish. But what we're seeing now is an escalation in anti-Semitism that had started with words, and then it starts with vandalism, and it's leading to violence. And we're spending, as a community, and the taxpayers are spending millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, that could be going into social welfare programs, that could go into helping people living below the poverty line, people with special needs, and it has to go in. Tens of millions of dollars have to be spent to keep our community safe. And to me, that's a travesty, that the government is allowing, whether it's under the guise of free speech or otherwise, there has to be a hard line between what's free speech, what's hate speech, and where it can't be tolerated. That's my fight.
As you talked in February, when you took on this job as chair of UJA's anti-Semitism committee, you said, quote, "This is a battle we can and must win." Do you believe we can win this? And if so, what does that look like to you?
We both watched what happened in Montreal a couple of days ago. We saw that woman who was a Second Cup franchisee standing in the middle of the street with the Heil Hitler salute and calling for the final solution. And I think we need moral leadership. The CEO and the Second Cup immediately revoked her franchise, took it away, and shut it down. And people need to be held accountable, and that's what that means. So I don't think Canadians want a country where terrorist supporters riot, attack the police, smash buildings, burn cars, and get away with it. I think too many Canadians are silent, but they support us. They want a peaceful, democratic society.
So you're looking at government, but is there a different also approach? I've read what you said, so I'm going to hint at it. You've talked about one-on-one with non-Jewish allies.
Jewish people who have non-Jewish friends need to sit down with their non-Jewish friends and tell them how they're feeling. I tell my non-Jewish friends, we're in a crisis, and I need you to stand with us.
So let's go back to the flight. I know you brought things with you up in space. What are you going to do with the things you brought?
They give you a payload bag where you can put up to 3 pounds of stuff, things that are personally meaningful to you to take to space. So what was important to me was that heritage. I talked about my grandparents coming to this country in the early 1900s, so I have pictures of milestones of 5 generations of Wolfonds in Canada. A picture of my grandparents that was taken in Toronto before they were married. Picture from my parents' wedding. Rochelle's father is a Holocaust survivor. He's still with us. He survived Auschwitz. So a picture of him on the beach in Florida, but he's relaxing on a lounger. And his Auschwitz tattoo is clearly visible, and I circled that. And his story is his father had passed away before the war. His mother, and 5 sisters survived in the Lodz ghetto for 2 years before they were transported to Auschwitz. They were separated on the platform of Auschwitz, and he never saw his family again. I'm sorry. Just reminders of what I was there for, my purpose in fighting anti-Semitism. So a picture of me in a little pilot suit that my mother said I would never take off when I was 5 years old. A picture, my bar mitzvah picture, my wedding picture, pictures of all of my children and grandchildren together. I took my son Adam's poetry book that was published, and I'm very proud of him, and that's quite meaningful to me. So really, connection to family and the story of how we got here.
Are you going to sell them? Like, how are you going to auction them off, or nothing?
No.
None of that.
No, I'm not selling a thing. I'm going to give a lot of things away. I brought 30 yellow ribbon pins. I brought 20 Canada-Israel flag pins. I brought 6 or 7 bring them home dog tags. So I don't know when this is coming up. You're getting one.
Did you say anything Jewishy or religious up there?
I did not. I was so awestruck. My script went out the window. I wanted to tell my children and grandchildren and everyone how much I love them. And there's sort of 18 names I wanted to go through, and I started stumbling in the middle. I got to it after we landed, but it's you plan, and then once you're there and you see it just overwhelms you so much that you can't deliver the lines.
Did you get to keep the uniform?
Yes, you get to keep the uniform. They give you lots of swag.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you wanted our listeners to understand about what this means for you going forward in your life?
It was the most incredible experience I've had in my lifetime. I feel really fortunate to have been able to do this, and I feel part of the beginning of a new age. The privatization of space travel, I think, will just continue to accelerate, and just in talking to them and sort of listening to SpaceX, this kind of experience, I think, within our children's lifetime, certainly our grandchildren's lifetime, will be accessible to everybody. And I just wish more people could experience the same, because it really does give you a perspective. We all came from the same place, if you believe in evolution, and we need to work better at solving problems without violence and without hate. I'm trying to make this not sound too kumbaya. This planet is not even a speck of dust in the vastness of the universe. It's the only place that any of us will ever habitate, and we need to take care of the planet and we need to take care of each other.
Did you say Goima when you came home? The prayer for surviving a perilous journey?
I'm atheist, sorry.
Are you an atheist after this?
Yeah, I'm a realist. Read Yuval Noah Harari, or read Sam Harris, or read Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins. I am not a religious person, but I'm a traditional person. We say a full Kiddush and we do a full Friday night Shabbat dinner every Friday. I go to synagogue on Kol Nidre. I fast every Yom Kippur.
It's been an honor to chat with you, really. I want to thank you so much for sharing this. I know you've done a million interviews.
Absolutely.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, made possible thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. You can learn more about the spaceflight and watch Wolfond's mission on the Blue Origin YouTube channel. The link is in our show notes. And stay tuned to our sister podcast, Culturally Jewish, where Wolfond's son Adam and his mother will be guests being interviewed about Adam's poetry book and an upcoming exhibition of his work. Adam lives with autism spectrum disorder and communicates through his iPad. He's working on his PhD thesis now. The Daily is produced by Zachary Kauffman. Our executive producer is Michael Fraiman, and the music is by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks for listening.